Hey guys, it's Jack. I wanted to let you know that we're starting a new push for subscriptions here on Human Events Daily. So make sure that when you're listening to this podcast, you hit subscribe, you download it, and you share it with 5 of your friends. Make sure they're all going and downloading as well, because we need to get the signal out as much as possible. Look, we've done so much over the past couple of years since this show started, and we're only going to do so much more. Let's get it. This is what happens when the fourth turning meets fifth generation warfare.
A commentator, international social media sensation, and former Navy intelligence veteran.
This is Human Events with your host, Jack Posobiec.
Christ is king.
Never, ever stop fighting, no matter what.
We will achieve American greatness, and we are just getting started.
The reason you went down there was you had been told that an individual wanted to turn themselves in.
That's correct.
Did you observe that individual?
I did.
And where was that person at the time?
So when we arrived, we went into the room that we were in. It was one of their office, the cubicles there. On the wall, there was a television monitor where I viewed an individual on that screen that was sitting in one of the soft interview rooms. That room was equipped with audio video recording device, and so I observed him on that screen at that time.
Did you speak with this individual that we've been talking about?
Yes, I did.
Did you get his name?
Yes, we obtained his name and date of birth.
What was his name?
Tyler Robinson.
The Kirk family believes strongly that if the evidence is being admitted in this preliminary hearing, it should be made public for the world to see. No redactions. This court has tools at its tools at its disposal to make sure the defendant receives a fair trial. You'll use them if you find that you need to. To not be transparent here, to not be open, to not let the world see what happened, will create doubt and distrust in the judicial system. And we'd ask the court to consider the position of the family in making its ultimate decision.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec back live here, Human Events Daily. We are on Human Events Primetime, I should say. We're on our very special coverage. I want to say thank you to Real America's Voice for allowing us to do this, where we've got this just incredible insight here in Provo, in the courtroom. I've just left the courtroom about an hour ago, I would say at this point, to be able to come in and I'll just say, I said this on a couple shows already, and I'll say it here again. I'm hot. I'm livid that we have not gotten the video of Lance Twiggs into the record yet. We were told that this was going to come today. We knew there would be a fight, but the fact that it hasn't even come in, even with the redactions now being put on, even with blocking of this coming in, it's something where it's incredibly frustrating that here we are 3 days in and we still don't have this evidence, and only 2 days left in the hearing. I want to bring on our guest now, Dr. Wendy Patrick. Dr. Wendy, how are you?
Oh, good, Jack. I really feel for you having to sit there and listen to this now for 3 full days. And you're right, we're not there yet.
Well, no, and look, there's certain moments where, look, when I go to court, I want to hear the evidence. I want to hear what was collected. I want to hear what the investigation went in. And, you'd hope that the court here in this case would then determine whether or not there's probable cause. Then there's the arraignment. Then you go to the actual trial, okay? But it just feels like we're not getting to that process, because it seems like the defense keeps throwing up these roadblocks to whether or not evidence was even going to be allowed to be heard in open court. And something like the testimony, the direct testimony of the roommate and boyfriend of Tyler Robinson is obviously relevant in this case, and even that is still now being denied to us. And I just have to say, I'm very frustrated. I'm very frustrated.
A completely frustrating day for you, for the Kirk family, for Erica Kirk's lawyer, as you heard expressed in court. They want transparency. They want this out there. I mean, this is the person who probably knew Tyler Robinson the best, know him the best. He's the roommate, he's the lover. And we know he made a statement, and we even know what the substance of that statement is. So we want to see it. We don't just want to hear about it, and we don't want to see a redaction. We want to see it. Now, this is what the judge said, and this is very frustrating. The judge is really trying his best, so he made a record, to balance constitutional rights of the defendant with transparency. And everybody in that courtroom wants transparency. But this is the problem that he's articulating. There's something in that transcript, there's something in the interview that apparently is so explosive or so unduly prejudicial, is probably what the judge is going to say tomorrow, that it can't be shown. It can't be shown to the public. It can't be shown even to a potential jury. Now, he hasn't made that ruling yet, but one thing they're all doing tonight is getting ready to re-argue this in court tomorrow. And I know you're going to be there. You're going to have a front row seat for it. The rest of us are waiting with bated breath to see this video, to hear about the substance of this. That's what we've been building up to for the last 2 days, laying the other types of foundation. Now it's time to hear from the defendant's own mouth. What did he say?
Well, and that's what it is. And, you know, the attorney, Novak, Richard Novak from LA, he is a very experienced defense lawyer. It's very clear that he's quite capable, that knows exactly what he's doing. He has successfully helped clients avoid the death penalty in the past, and potentially that could be what he's trying to do here, not just in, of course, in the criminal case, but also at the appellate level. And, you know, going to the Constitution for everything, it really seems to me to be a case where, and I'll just say it, you know, my personal opinion was I felt that the state was much more assertive yesterday, was more willing to stand up for themselves, was much more willing to push the envelope when it came to the evidence, saying, you know, we will not go into closed session. We will refer to the evidence. We will cite these things. That was yesterday. Whereas today, it seemed like a different strategy from the state, where they were being much more accommodating, much more passive. And again, when you're dealing with evidence that is so crucial to the case, like obviously, as we all know, that Lance Twiggs and Tyler's relationship with him are right at the center of this case, to see the state not take on that more assertive role was just very frustrating. And of course, the defense used that to their advantage to really just get it blocked for yet another day.
That's right. And part of the frustration from the prosecutor's standpoint, this is probably what they're talking about back at the office right now, is that it's one thing to maybe be more assertive when it comes to evidence like ballistics evidence, even DNA evidence, scientific evidence, video evidence. Those things are pretty much uncontroverted. I mean, you could argue the science, but it is what it is. And this evidence was captured and collected, and it's good circumstantial evidence. When it comes to statements made by a suspect, we're in a little bit different area. We're on thinner ice as a prosecution team. That could be, and I'm sure you'll hear more of this tomorrow, that could be why they're a little more nervous to make sure that the rulings are accurate. Not that they're not going to fight for it, but that they want to make sure they're very accurate about what they get into the evidence. Because if, God forbid, something came in that shouldn't have legally, if that's what a higher court decided, then what might happen is it would be reversed and would have to do it all over again. Can you imagine, Jack, you, the Kirk family, Erica, having to sit through this trial again? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that's a concern of the prosecutor. It's a concern of the judge. That might be why this evidence is being treated a little differently by that team than a lot of the scientific evidence that was merely collected from the scene.
So walk us through that, and we just have 2 minutes in this segment, but what makes the defendant's statements different? I mean, you know, looking at this as a layperson, if the defendant makes a statement, text messages, Discord, that reads to me like a confession, you would think from a common sense standpoint that would be very critical evidence.
It is, but I wonder what else is in there. Because that's always the case, is if you're talking about a confession to the police, it's a lot different than you're talking about a conversation with a lover, with a roommate. What I was wondering as I watched the hearing today is what else is on that tape? What else is there that might be so unduly prejudicial that the judge wants it redacted? I mean, we don't know what it is, and we would love to know what it is so we could better understand the why. Why did we build up to today? Throughout the last couple of days, this has been referred to, and all of a sudden, we've pulled the brakes. I hope we hear more about that tomorrow. I know both sides are briefing it, and the judge is going to be reading everything as well. And we're going to start out of the gate with it. Maybe we can get this resolved and finally get some of that transparency that everybody wants in the courtroom. And frankly, both sides know that this is coming into evidence. I think it's right now at this stage in the game, what format and how much.
Well, no, I think that's exactly right. And so we're going to be looking for that. We're going to be looking for so much more. We're going to take a quick break here on our coverage, throw it a commercial. I want to say thank you again to the team for being out here. Of course, special thank you to Allegiance Gold, by the way, our partners over at Allegiance Gold, protectwithpozo.com. They are providing our protection while we're here on the ground seeking justice for Charlie Kirk.
Stop fighting no matter what. We will achieve American greatness, and we are just getting started.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec back live here, Human Events Daily, Real America's Voice. And we're here in Provo, Utah. We are seeking justice for Charlie Kirk. This is Human Events Primetime. We are, of course, working to push on this case. And I want to get up with our expert here, Dr. Wendy Patrick, who is walking us through all of this. And Dr. Wendy, you're exactly right when you say that the big issue, one of the big issues that could come up is, should this be overturned on appeal or something happens on appeal that either the case gets thrown out, has to be retried, or any number of pieces of this. And so walk us through the prosecution's, sort of that overarching strategy, how they have to look far into the future at potential future risks that they're planning ahead for now.
Yeah, and you're right, Jack. That is one thing about this hearing that really personalized it for me. I mean, I've been a prosecutor for almost 30 years, and I was thinking as I watched the argument, what I would be considering is whether or not the judge is feeling under a time pressure to make a decision, whether he's thinking to himself, this is a probable cause hearing. I don't need to make the ruling deciding what, if any, redactions are necessary before this is played. He might be thinking, if I release too much of the statement now, it might taint a potential future jury pool. You talk about looking to the future. What he might be thinking is between the prelim and the trial, there'll be ample opportunity for both sides to further brief the issue, to have hearings, to decide what's admissible. He may be thinking he doesn't want to scramble and make a ruling now. But Jack, on the other hand, I'm thinking, why are we scrambling? I mean, you no doubt know both sides have probably papered each other to death with objections, with motions, with whatever it is to make this admissible. But that might be one saving grace in maybe not seeing as much of it as we would like to tomorrow, but maybe left with the hope that we will see it in its entirety, and so will a jury if we get to trial.
Well, no, I certainly agree on that, and that ultimately what we want is justice, right? Ultimately, one is that. And I guess, though, for those of us who are out here, who knew Charlie as well, that we do still want that transparency. There's still so much of that earnest yearning to see what other evidence is there that's been collected. And to be fair, they've released a lot of evidence this week, but it seems to me that the judge is really splitting the baby on almost every single one of these decisions. And so, for example, we're getting only limited disclosures in court, and what's being shown on that TV screen, I can see it in extremely high quality definition, but for folks at home who are recording it or getting over the live stream, it's not coming through as much, and we don't even know if those exhibits are going to be later shown. And so I guess one of my other frustrations is I don't know if the transparency in this case is where it should be.
Yeah, and you know, Jack, I feel that sentiment as well. And I think part of it has to do with the contrast between how transparent Charlie Kirk was about everything he believed, all the dreams that he had. I interviewed him on my radio show last year. He's just such an exceptional man. And to say that somebody that assassinated him in broad daylight doesn't isn't going to be subjected to the same standard of letting us know what he did, what he said, what he told his roommate about it, is enormously frustrated. And it is that level of emotion that really has characterized this preliminary hearing, both in and out of the courtroom. I mean, it's bad enough out here. I can't imagine how tense it is inside the courtroom for all of you that are sitting literally feet from the assassin, from the defendant. But the transparency question, let me be very clinical and legal about it. Because a probable cause hearing legally only requires a very small showing, sort of a sampling of the type of evidence that's going to be admissible at trial, sometimes judges, and this one in particular, really narrows the scope of what might otherwise be admissible at a prelim. Because think about it, a case this high profile, whatever comes out at prelim is going to be all over the court of public opinion between now and trial. And we already know that this judge is taking into consideration making sure nothing out there taints a jury pool. So that might be part of his thinking. But Jack, more importantly, it's also why we're frustrated at a probable cause hearing, given the narrower scope of the evidence that this judge is going to admit. And I think this video, whatever parts of it we see, falls into that category.
No, I think that's right. And in fact, we are still going to get more information. We're told, by the way, in terms of the text messages, and we've seen quite a few amounts of text messages in various motions and filings, but we're including Discord messages, these group chat messages. We're also told, by the way, it came out in court, that there's going to be more text messages that have not yet been released. And of course, today, the one piece of actual evidence that we did get, probably the only thing that, from my perspective, that transparency publication perspective, was, of course, the video of Tyler Robinson playing in the Washington County Sheriff's Department. And I actually, as I was looking at it, I turned and I watched Tyler looking at himself from the courtroom over to that video of himself walking in, and he was staring very into. I would say he looked like he was fidgeting. He looked like he was fidgeting in his seat. He looked uncomfortable, and that was something that I hadn't noticed in him before. So I'm laughing on day one, but this level of discomfort was something that I noted for the first time. And keep in mind, I didn't even see that when they showed the graphic videos of Charlie's murder, but seeing himself on video in that room made him, have that reaction. We will see. We'll see what else happens. Dr. Wendy, I'd love to get your analysis on it, but unfortunately, we're out of time. We'll have to do that the next time we have you on. In the meantime, where can people go to follow you?
WendyPatrickPhD.com. Thank you so much for having me on, Jack.
All right, and hold me to that. I want your analysis of his reaction the next time we have you back here, Human Events Primetime.
Where's Jack? Where is he? Jack, I want to see you. Great job, Jack. Thank you. What a job you do. You know, we have an incredible thing. We're always talking about the fake news and the bad, but we have guys, and these are the guys who should be getting Pulitzers.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec back live, Human Events Primetime here, Provo, Utah, and we want to welcome you in for this coverage of the Tyler Robinson hearing. Before we get started, I want to thank Allegiance Gold for making this special coverage possible. Covering a travel like this from the scene takes a lot behind the scenes, including the security that's required for our team to be here safely. Their support is a big part of making that possible, and we are grateful for it. Spending time here also reminds me that security means different things for different people. For us this week, it's physical security while we're on location, but for all of us, it's also about that financial security, doing what we can to protect our families and what we've worked so hard to build. That's why I'm especially thankful for Allegiance Gold. We've been working together for the past 5 years, and relationships like that aren't built overnight. They're built on trust, consistency, and showing up for each other. We appreciate that their support of this special coverage, and we're proud to have them standing with us. If you'd like to learn more, visit protectwithposo.com. That's protectwithposo.com or call 844-577-POSO to learn more. All right. I want to bring on now Andrea Burkhart from Andrea Burkhart Law. She's been live streaming all of this. And of course, I am getting a little bit of FOMO because I don't have the Andrea Burkhart live stream in my ear while I'm sitting there in the courtroom. Andrea, how are you?
I'm great, Jack. I hope you're hanging in there.
I am, and I've, by the way, for the record, so I have like my IFB, that's what we call this little thing in our earpiece, and I've been thinking, what if I try to smuggle one of these in so I can have Andrea in my ear while I'm in the court? Probably not a good idea.
Probably not ideal.
No, the court frowns. In fact, there was somebody with a cell phone the other day who was asked to leave. But I will admit, I did used to do that when I was in college, and I would have like Rush Limbaugh in my ear.
You're not the only one, I'm sure.
And funny enough, actually, Catherine Limbaugh. This hasn't been reported as much, and I should say it as well. Catherine Limbaugh, Rush's wife, has been there with us every single day so far in court. So, here we are coming full circle. But, look, I'll just say, I mean, you probably know what I'm going to say already, that today felt pretty frustrating for those of us that have been fighting to get evidence out, fighting to get, more of the transparency in the case. Mr. Novak came in and, fought tooth and nail to block that video of Tyler Robinson's boyfriend, Lance Twiggs. And then when he couldn't fully block it, he then went for redactions, got the video off, then more redactions. How do you think that all played out? And, he's really, pushing on due process and saying the rights of the accused to a fair trial. And none of us are disputing that, but it really seems as though that this was key evidence. And so we're trying to understand the balance here.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I said before, I've been a fan of Mr. Novak. I've probably been one of the biggest boosters out there for Judge Graff, but on this particular issue, I have to say I think they're flat wrong, squarely wrong. And to some extent, I think the way that today unfolded is a product of the process that allowed it to unfold. It's got a little flavor of sandbagging to it, to spring something like this on the court that is a fairly sophisticated legal issue. It happens to be an issue that's near and dear to my heart, public access to court proceedings. So it's one that I've researched extensively and very familiar with. But I don't expect most of these parties to have done that, and certainly not this judge, who from his own account has something like 1,400 open cases besides this one. So to expect the judge to handle the intricacies of these types of constitutional issues and to be familiar with how the law has developed over time and has changed over time is a little bit of an unrealistic expectation. So I do think he's wrong on the law. There have been subsequent developments since the case they have relied on, this Estes versus Texas case, that I think to some extent overrule it and to some extent also just undermine it substantially. So my hope for this process right now is the fact that the court has kicked this over to tomorrow, and he's invited the additional input, the additional briefing from Mr. Novak as well as from the state. And so I hope that's going to be a little bit of a cure to this, expecting him to handle it on the fly. It will enable him to be more fully informed about the bigger legal picture that's involved here, because there is U.S. Supreme Court precedent that's pretty squarely on point with the situation, that is in direct contradiction with the kind of way the balancing was handled today.
So when you're saying it's in contradiction, and that's now my ears are perking up a little bit. See, Andrea, this is why we booked you on the show. So you're giving me a little bit more hope. I might actually be able to sleep tonight now. So they're bringing up the Estes case, and of course he's, to your point, he's bringing up as Novak himself stated in court, it's an extremely complex case, and he knew that he was bringing up an extremely complex case on the fly, and he said, well, Judge, we could go to closed chambers, we could do all the rest. And I'm like, I know a sandbagging when I see one. I've been in politics, I've been in media. I know, all right, I know what's going on here. It's very clear to me what's going on here. And, it would only take a couple hours, maybe just another open session. Okay. Let's cut to the chase. What do you want? So when you say the ballot that it, was unbalanced, it felt unbalanced, certainly from the perspective of those of us that want to see this transparency, what should the balance be when it comes to something like this?
Well, let me explain the background first off. So Estes versus Texas is a case from the 1960s. It's in the very early days of certainly court being televised at all, and in an institution that is notoriously conservative, not real receptive to technological advancement and so forth. And so it reflects the mindset of the court from that era. But most of our First Amendment jurisprudence that recognizes that access to courts is part of our civic duty as citizens to monitor our government and be informed about what's taking place so that we can make good decisions about how to improve it. Most of that developed in the 1980s at a later time. And so since the Estes decision in 1968, we have first off a full reversal of the basic holding of Estes, which was that it is a per se due process violation to televise a criminal trial. In a landmark case, Chandler versus Arizona, the U.S. Supreme Court explicitly said, we're not holding that anymore. It's a case-by-case determination whether there are due process considerations. Subsequently, then we had this First Amendment right of access jurisprudence that began to develop. And the most notable cases in that arena are what's called the press enterprise cases. They dealt with the right of access to various proceedings in criminal cases. And so Press Enterprise 2, the second time it went up to the court, dealt very specifically with the public's right of access to preliminary hearings. Similar process that was taking place in California, as we're seeing in this Utah courtroom here today. And so the Supreme Court dealt with all of these issues, and it acknowledged, there's a countervailing interest in the defendant's right to a fair trial. However, it explicitly recognized the points that the lawyer for the media was in court making today, which is that often these types of pretrial proceedings are the only time the public is going to have access to the process, because so many of our criminal cases result in pleas. And so if you're interested in the evidence being vetted and understanding how the process got to the point that it did, this may be the only opportunity for us to have that insight. And second, the mere fact that evidence might ultimately be inadmissible at trial is not in and of itself like per se grounds to exclude the public, particularly when that evidence is crucial for the trial court's decision that it's being asked to make. Because if we can't understand why the court is making its decision, then we're not informed as citizens. We don't know if the court is doing a good job. We don't know if the laws are operating the way that we expect them to. We don't know what action we may need to take.
Andrew, we are coming up on a hard break, but thank you for saying this, because everything you're saying now makes so much more sense to me than what happened in that courtroom just a few hours ago. Jack Posobiec, Andrew Burkhart, right back. Human Events Primetime.
Appreciation Hour. I can say confidently, I think Josh Shapiro would be the vice presidential nominee if it wasn't for Jack Posobiec. And that is, I'm being honest.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec back live here at Human Events Daily, Real America's Voice. We're on, of course, this is the Human Events special primetime coverage of the Tyler Robinson hearing live from Provo, Utah. Folks, this week has been a reminder of what really matters: faith, family, freedom, the legacy that Charlie Kirk helped to build and has left us with. And even as something as ordinary as your cell phone service, it starts to matter more in times like this. The people you trust to protect and defend your communication matter just as much as the calls that you make on it. And that's what Patriot Mobile is all about. For more than 12 years, they've stood with Americans who want their money to reflect their values, backing the Christian conservative movement and showing up for the movement that Charlie helped build. Switching is easy. You can keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Their 100% U.S.-based customer support team can get you activated in minutes. And if you're still paying off a device, they can help you deliver a contract buyout. Best of all, they deliver premium priority access on all 3 major U.S. networks. So you're not sacrificing quality to make a principled choice. If you believe it matters who you trust to protect and defend your communication, Patriot Mobile is worth a look. Go to patriotmobile.com/POSO or call 972-PATRIOT. Use promo code POSO for a free month of service. That's patriotmobile.com/POSO or give them a call, 972-PATRIOT. All right, we're on again with Andrew Burkhart. And Andrew, there was a moment in the case today, and it's generated quite a few headlines, where the Kirk family lawyer, Jeff Neiman, came up, and I believe this was the first time in this hearing that he's made a direct address of the court and was fighting very strenuously for, as you say, the public's First Amendment right to access to not just trial, but also pre-trial proceedings. And that seemed to me like a very forceful thing for not only for him to say, but the fact that this was the first time he weighed in, it just shows how much of a priority it is to the Kirk family.
Yeah, I was very impressed with the passion he spoke with. I kind of took me by surprise because I wasn't really expecting him to have such strong feelings about it. But I can understand, just given the commentary environment surrounding this case, why this matters so much to the Kirk family. His point was that if we can't see what's going on, that undermines the legitimacy of this process. And the legitimacy of this process is critical for anybody to have a sense that justice is being done. So for that to be threatened is a real threat to everything that the Kirk family is having to go through in order to kind of endure this extended process through the judicial system that is far from kind to victims of crime.
No, it's not, and I do understand where the prosecutors are coming from in terms of they have to think about the risks and appeals and all of the things that can later be overturned. I totally get that. But at the same time, I really am with Jeff very much in this belief that it is the public's direct access to our courts. And he talked about it as, you know, and as a guy who does a show like this, or you who do live streaming, this is how we access our legal proceedings. And so it's really speaks to whether or not the system itself has that public integrity if we can have direct access to it. It's not the 1960s anymore. And in fact, Mr. Novak kept bringing that up as if it was like a joke. Like, oh, well, they mentioned television, but I'll have to edit that out a little bit. Well, yeah, because that decision is like 60 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the culture has shifted significantly since then, and the environment has shifted significantly since then. One of the I think big changes in perspective that's occurred is that when cameras were novel in courtrooms, it's scary. You're not quite sure what's going to happen. There's concerns about things like people are going to play to the cameras. It's going to undermine the dignity of the process. My counter argument to that is that if we had cameras in every single courtroom in this country, which by the way, we already have, because since COVID, every court in the country is equipped for remote court. And so the systems are already in place. They're just not being broadcast to us live. But if that was available from every courtroom in the country, then it would be the most normal thing in the world. It's only because it's treated as this extraordinary accommodation to allow those of us who can't be physically present in a courtroom to see it, that it has this potential effect on the participants in the process. Make it normal and that won't happen.
I completely agree with you. And obviously, this is a role for, we're in federal court, so obviously we're in state court now. Had he been brought up on federal charges, for example, we would not be getting a live stream of this at all. And so I have heard people point out, they say, well, should he be charged federally? And that's obviously a question for the legal system. But just basic understanding for people that, rules of the road here, that at the state level, that's the only level, state and local, where you have access to live streamed criminal proceedings. At the federal level, they are banned completely. And to your point about the slowness of them, I think it's really only been in the last couple of years where the Supreme Court is at least allowing audio of the oral arguments to be broadcast, and people get to tune in. And I think it's wonderful. I think it's phenomenal to be able to hear the different justices, to hear these Supreme Court arguments being made, these arguments at the constitutional level, which of course affect all cases like we saw today here in Utah. So we want more transparency. We do live in a more transparent time. That's just the nature of the world that we live in now. And, to his point, that's the reason they were talking about television back then, because television was brand new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, television was just a couple decades old at that point. And I realize there's a lot of different implications with the different media environment that we have today. We're not at really a high point in terms of the trust we have in our institutions, and the media is part of that as well. The trust in the media is not at a particularly high point, but we're dependent on the media in the absence of cameras, in the absence of some kind of direct access to the courtroom ourselves to tell us what's going on. I would say I have to say, I have been very. It's sat very well with me to see the active role that the media has taken in this particular case to advocate for access the way that they are. The problem with these types of arguments is that the state and the defense, they have their own interests at stake, and there are going to be situations where it's not to their benefit to have the cameras there, and so they're not going to be advocating on behalf of all of us who have no dog in the fight. We just want to see the process for ourselves. And so that's the critical role that the media advocacy is playing in this particular case, is that making sure we actually have a place at the table for our interests to be expressed to the court.
No, I think it's exactly right. And there's been a number of times where I've noted as well, there was a different representative today, but even before, for the first 2 days and for today, it's been that media advocate who is really calling out all of this and standing on that idea of the public's right to access to these proceedings as protected and understood through the Supreme Court's decisions under the First Amendment. Andrea Burkhart, unfortunately, that is all the time I have for tonight. Where can people go to follow you and get so much more of your incredible analysis?
Find me on andreaburkhart.substack.com for your access to the legal document archive that I'm maintaining for this case. You can also find me under the handle A. Burkhart Law on X and on YouTube. And as I said, I will be having a live stream tonight to discuss some of this legal issue.
Well, I'm going to be there. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission to lay ashore.